My name is Victoria Ashford, and I spent the last 18 years building an empire that I never intended to share with anyone. As a ruthless CEO of Ashford Technologies, I'm known for my sharp mind, my cutthroat business tactics, and my complete emotional detachment. I'm 42 years old, have never wanted marriage, and certainly never wanted children. My life is perfectly ordered. My career is my passion. Everything else is secondary. Until that one night changed everything. The company retreat in Miami was supposed to be a networking opportunity. Somewhere I could showcase my latest innovations, intimidate my competitors, and remind everyone exactly why I'm the most powerful woman in the room. I was in my element, dressed in a custom Armani suit, commanding every conversation, making deals that would reshape the industry. But then I saw him, Cameron Brooks, VP of Operations, a man I deliberately kept at arm's length for the past 3 years because he represented something I didn't want to acknowledge. He was a widowed father of an 8-year-old girl named Ruby. He was the kind of man who actually cared about work-life balance, who left meetings early to make his daughter's school events, who talked about fatherhood with a tenderness that made me deeply uncomfortable. He was everything I'd spent my life avoiding. That night, I was in the hotel bar, nursing martini and reviewing acquisition documents on my phone, when he sat down next to me. I didn't look up. I didn't have to. I could feel him there, and it irritated me. Cameron had this way of existing that just disrupted my carefully maintained equilibrium. "You know," he said, his voice warm in that infuriating way of his, "I've never seen you actually relax." "I am relaxed," I replied coolly, not looking at him. "This is me at leisure." "No," he said, "this is you working while holding a drink. There's a difference." Something about his observation, his refusal to let me retreat into my standard coldness, made me actually look at him. He was wearing casual clothes, a linen shirt unbuttoned at the collar, dark jeans. His brown eyes held a gentleness that had no business existing in the cutthroat world of tech. "What do you want, Cameron?" I asked, my tone sharp enough to cut glass. "To talk to you like you're a human being instead of a CEO," he said simply. "Just for one night. No agenda, no corporate politics. Just conversation." I should have left. Should have gone back to my suite and my work and my perfectly controlled life. Instead, I found myself talking to him about everything I never talk about growing up with a mother who demanded perfection, about building my company from nothing while watching other women choose families and compromise, about the choice I'd made to never be dependent on another person, never be vulnerable, never let anyone close enough to disappoint me. He listened, not with pity, but with genuine interest. And when he talked about Ruby, about the challenges of being a single father, about the guilt he carried for not being enough, I felt something crack inside me, something I didn't even know was there. One drink led to another. We moved from the bar to the balcony overlooking the ocean. The night was warm, the sky was clear, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about quarterly earnings or market projections. "You're not what people think you are," he said, looking at me with an intensity that made my chest tight. "You don't know me," I replied, but my voice lacked conviction. "I want to," he said. He reached out and touched my face, and I didn't pull away. "I want to know the woman underneath all of this armor." That was my last clear thought before he kissed me. And then I was kissing him back like I'd been dying, and he was the only oxygen left in the world. Like all the walls I'd spent decades constructing could crumble in a single moment of weakness. We ended up in his room. I let him undress me. I let him see me, not just my body, but the vulnerability underneath. That night, I wasn't Victoria Ashford, ruthless CEO. I was just a woman who'd spent so long running that she'd forgotten why she was afraid to stop. By morning, the panic had set in. I woke before he did, looked at the sleeping man beside me, and felt this surge of absolute terror. I'd made a mistake. A catastrophic, inexplicable mistake. I was Victoria Ashford. I didn't do spontaneous. I didn't do vulnerable. I certainly didn't do this, lying naked in a man's arms, my walls completely demolished. I got dressed quietly and left before he woke up. When we returned to the office, I made sure to establish clear boundaries. Professional, distant. I made it clear with every interaction that what happened between us was a lapse in judgment, nothing more. Cameron tried to talk to me about it, tried to suggest that maybe there was something real there worth exploring. I shut him down with surgical precision. It was a mistake. I told him, my voice colder than ice. A moment of weakness. Nothing more. I suggest we move past it and maintain a professional relationship. I watched the hurt in his eyes, and I forced myself not to care. Caring was dangerous. Caring led to dependence, and dependence led to loss. For 3 months, I buried myself in work. I negotiated a massive expansion into Europe. I restructured our entire operations division. I did everything right, made all the strategic moves, maintained my position as the most feared woman in tech. But my body had other plans. At first, I ignored the signs. The nausea that hit me at random times. The exhaustion that seemed to cling to me despite 10-hour nights of sleep. The way my breast became so tender that wearing a bra was agony. I attributed it to stress, to the intensity of my work schedule. But then I missed my period. I sat in my private bathroom at home, staring at the positive pregnancy test for what felt like an eternity. My hands were shaking. Victoria Ashford doesn't shake. Victoria Ashford doesn't panic. But I was panicking. I was pregnant. With Cameron's baby. The thought was so terrifying, so completely contrary to everything I planned for my life, that I had to sit down on the bathroom floor. A baby meant vulnerability. It meant depending on another person. It meant that my carefully constructed life would become chaos. It meant I would have to become someone I didn't want to be. For 2 weeks, I told no one. I scheduled a private doctor's appointment and confirmed what I already knew. I was 8 weeks pregnant. Healthy baby. Everything was progressing normally. The doctor looked at me expectantly, like I should be expressing joy or excitement or something approximating human emotion. I felt nothing but dread. I thought about terminating the pregnancy. I actually made an appointment. But every time I got close to going through with it, I'd think about Cameron, about the way he talked about Ruby with such love, such pride. I'd think about what it meant to take a life that I'd created, and I'd cancel the appointment. So I did what I always do. I tried to control the situation. I started researching single motherhood. I calculated the logistics of balancing a baby with my career. I created a plan for how I could do this alone, how I could have a child without ever needing anyone, without ever being dependent or vulnerable. It was a good plan, a logical plan, exactly the kind of plan Victoria Ashford would make. But Cameron deserved to know. As much as I didn't want to face it, as much as I wanted to pretend this was something I could handle entirely on my own, I couldn't make that choice for him. He was Sophie's father. He understood what it meant to be responsible for a life. He deserved to know he had another child. The night I decided to tell him, I was terrified in a way I'd never been before. I stood outside his apartment building for 10 minutes, hand on the door, trying to gather the courage to go in. Victoria Ashford doesn't get nervous. Victoria Ashford doesn't beg for understanding. But that's what I was about to do. When he opened the door, surprise flickered across his face. I hadn't been to his apartment since that night in Miami. I'd made sure we only interacted at work, in professional settings where I could maintain my armor. Victoria, he said, and there was something in the way he said my name, like he still remembered who I was underneath all the coldness. What are you doing here? Can I come in? I asked. He stepped aside, and I walked into his living room. It was warm and lived in, with photographs of Sophie on the walls, evidence of a life that included love and softness and all the things I'd spent my life running from. We need to talk, I said, and I watched his jaw tighten. And I need you to let me finish before you say anything, because I've been practicing this in my head for 2 weeks, and if you interrupt me, I might lose my nerve. He nodded slowly, gesturing to the couch. We sat, not touching, and I felt the distance between us like a physical thing. 3 months ago, I made a choice that I've been trying to pretend didn't happen. When we were in Miami, I did something completely unlike myself. I let my guard down, and I've been paying for that decision ever since by trying to pretend it never occurred. Cameron's expression was unreadable. But something's happened. I continued, my voice steadier now. Something that I can't pretend away. Something that changes everything. I took a breath, told him the truth. I'm pregnant, with your child. And I know this is the last thing you expected. And I know this complicates everything. And I know that you have Ruby to consider. And I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not asking you to be involved. I just thought you deserved to know that our one night had consequences. The silence that followed was deafening. Cameron just stared at me, like he was processing information his brain couldn't quite accept. "You're pregnant," he finally said. "Yes." "And you've known for how long?" 3 weeks, I admitted, but I wanted to be sure. I wanted to have a plan before I told you. "Of course you did," he said, and there was something like sadness in his voice. "Victoria, did it ever occur to you that this isn't just your situation to manage? That maybe I should have been part of the decision-making process?" "I wasn't deciding anything," I said. I'm keeping the baby. I know that's not what I said before, and I know I said I never wanted this, but I couldn't. I trailed off, and suddenly I was crying. Victoria Ashford doesn't cry, but I was crying, sitting on this man's couch, in this warm and lived-in apartment that smelled like his cologne and his daughter's apple juice, and I couldn't stop. Cameron moved toward me, and I let him. He pulled me against his chest, and I felt him holding me, and something inside me finally broke open. "I'm scared," I whispered. "I'm terrified. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a mother. I don't know how to let someone depend on me without destroying them. I built my entire life around never needing anyone, and now there's going to be a person who needs me more than anyone could possibly need another person, and I don't know if I'm capable of not destroying them." "You won't," Cameron said quietly. "You're stronger than you think, and you won't be doing this alone." I pulled back and looked at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I don't know how this is going to work," he said carefully. "I'm saying that you terrified me in Miami. You still terrify me. But I also saw something that night, someone real underneath all the armor, someone capable of love, even if you spent your whole life convinced you're not." "Cameron." "Let me finish," he interrupted gently. "I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm not asking you to suddenly become soft and vulnerable and domestic. I'm asking you to let me in, to let our baby have a father who's present, and maybe, eventually, to let me be someone who's present for you too." I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him that I couldn't be what he needed, that getting involved with him would only hurt everyone. But instead, I found myself nodding. "I don't know how to do relationships," I admitted. "I know," he said. "But you know how to work hard for something you want. You know how to commit to a goal and make it happen. Maybe we can approach this like that. You and me and our baby. We can figure it out together." Over the next 6 months, that's what we did. I told my board that I was taking a leave of absence. I moved into Cameron's house. I let Ruby teach me how to braid hair and play with Lego and watch animated movies without mentally calculating stock portfolios. I learned how to let someone care for me. I learned how to be vulnerable. When our son was born, when I held him for the first time and looked into his face, something shifted in me completely. This tiny person who was half me, half Cameron, was the most important thing I'd ever created. More important than any company, any deal, any empire. Cameron cried when he saw him. He looked at me with so much love that I could barely breathe. "What do you want to name him?" he asked. I thought about everything I'd run from, everything I'd been afraid of, everything I'd finally stopped running from. "James," I said, "after my father, the one person who ever made me feel like I was enough." Cameron kissed my forehead, and I let him. I let myself be held. I let myself be loved. It turns out that the most powerful decision I ever made wasn't closing a billion-dollar deal or crushing my competition. It was deciding to stop being afraid. It was letting someone in. It was choosing love over control, vulnerability over armor. And it was the best decision I've ever made. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more heartfelt tales, and drop a comment letting us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. Thanks for being part of the Unscripted Hearts community.